Sugar cravings is the topic of the day, and it's really just because of the time of year that we've kind of just entered into, where we do need a little bit of help because even if you don't crave sugar, you're going to see it, and we need to kind of troubleshoot how to work around that. So, the first part that I want you to think about when you think about sugar cravings is I want you to think back on what your day looked like. So, most of the time when we crave sugar, we're kind of craving sugar before dinner, later in the afternoon, that 3 o'clock kind of slump, or even like post dinner sometimes. So, you've had dinner, you've had a really good dinner, but then all of a sudden at like 9 o'clock, you just get so hungry and you just want something sugary to kind of quench that hunger. So take a peek at what you've eaten earlier in the day. So I find sometimes people are tornadoes in the morning, they don't have a proper first meal, maybe even the whole day, they just kind of snack throughout the day. So you want to make sure your day leading up to that 3 o'clock window or, post dinner window, you've had a good amount of protein and you've had a good amount of fiber. So when I say good amount, I don't know if we've talked about this before, but there was a really interesting study done that showed you need to eat at least 25 grams of protein per meal for your body to even register that you've had protein. So when we're younger, when I say younger, I'm talking less than 35, you were able to eat like a handful of nuts or a protein bar. And your body's like, amazing, thank you. Here's 10 grams of protein. I know what to do with it. But after the age of 35, you need to eat at least 25 grams for your body to go, awesome. Okay, I've had a good dose of protein. I feel full. I feel satiated. My blood sugars are stable. And you're not going to have this hunger dip. And when you have this hunger dip, that's what sometimes happens when we crave sugar because your body wants quick energy. And the quickest form of energy is sugar because it gets converted into energy instantaneously compared to something with fat or something with protein. So take a peek at your day. Make sure your first meal has at least 25 grams of protein. You're having fiber throughout the day, and you're not just kind of piling all that in the afternoon. Because sometimes I find if you only have dinner, for example, or you only have one meal for the day, you might be craving that sugar because your hunger cues have just turned on. So that is number one. Number two is something called the last bite threshold. And the last bite threshold is super, super interesting because I think it applies to a lot of different foods. So, what you want to think about is when you eat something that is absolutely delicious and enjoyable, there is a point in the eating experience where that enjoyment kind of hits its peak and then it diminishes. So, the goal here is to identify when that peak actually happens. So it's really interesting because the studies show that, after the first 3 bites, literally that enjoyment experience goes from 90% to 20% within the first 3 bites. And you probably think about, if you were to have like a cookie or let's say it's a Purdy's chocolate or something really sugary, that first bite is absolutely delicious. Like you can't really compete with with that first bite. So that is that experience. So if you can kind of catch yourself and figure out when you've hit that sort of threshold where you've gone from this like first bite 90% enjoyment to this 20% enjoyment, then you can probably just have one cookie, or you could have half of something, put it in the fridge and have it again the next day. So it's kind of that almost mindfulness a little bit, but just sort of when you are eating, try to pay attention to when that peak happens and when it actually diminishes. Okay, so number three, it's kind of going back to that mindful eating or intuitive eating. And when you think about intuitive eating, there's a bunch of different principles that are surrounding intuitive eating. And one of the principles is talking about basically when you do choose your favorite thing to eat. So let's say you're having a sugar craving, you've had good amounts of protein, good amounts of fiber throughout the day, but you're just craving that Purdy's chocolate or that cinnamon bun or whatever it is that you absolutely love and enjoy. When you do actually eat it, I want you to turn off your TV, turn off the phone, get up from the computer, sit down at the table and actually enjoy every single bite. Because when we do that, we actually register that we've eaten something and it's satisfying, it's satiating. And when we enjoy it, we won't actually need it again tomorrow or next week. We might need it again in 10 days, and that's totally fine. But it just sort of allows you to truly enjoy it and get that satisfaction and enjoyment. Most of the time, we are, eating over the sink, or we're eating while we're watching TV, and we have all this like negative self-talk, like, why am I eating this? I shouldn't be eating this. What's wrong with me? And you don't even enjoy it. So I think a part of the sugar cravings, if you're truly having one, is just to eat something that you absolutely enjoy and absolutely love, and enjoy every single bite of it. Okay, let's talk about some alternatives. So I'll give you some of mine. And then again, I'd love to hear some of your alternatives. So off the top of my head, I kind of came up with a handful of them. So one of them is herbal tea. And that might not sound very appetizing or satiating, but if you pick a good herbal tea, so there is a company out there, and a lot of them shut down during COVID, but there's a company called David's Tea, and they do some fantastic herbal tea. So for instance, in my cupboard, I have a herbal tea called birthday cake tea. And it's, a little bit sweet, but it hits the spot. It's like a piece of cake that's lasting like a half an hour. So it definitely can be a good alternative. Another one I really like is roasted chickpeas. So roasted chickpeas do come in lots of different flavors. So you will see like salt, you'll see barbecue. There's actually a cinnamon flavored one that I think is really lovely. And that might be a good alternative, because then at least you're getting protein and fiber at the same time. You could do some Greek yogurt with frozen berries if you're craving something like creamy and ice creamy. If the plain Greek yogurt doesn't satisfy that craving, feel free to buy like plain Greek yogurt and then buy like a flavor that you absolutely adore, whether it's dark cherry or lemon, and just kind of add a couple of scoops of the flavored yogurt to your Greek yogurt. So don't do half, probably do, let's say 3/4 of a cup of the Greek and then maybe an eighth of a cup of the sweetener one. But at least that way you kind of get the ice cream type sensation that you might be looking for. Baked apple slices with cinnamon is another really good one. One of my favorites, this is going to sound bizarre if you haven't tried it, but frozen grapes. So when you freeze grapes, for some weird reason, they taste absolutely delicious and sweet. So that would be one that you could do. Good old like chia seed pudding. If you need a recipe, let me know. Medjool dates. So dates are absolutely fantastic. And the last one I have here is even sometimes cold cereal with like an unsweetened non-dairy milk. Because sometimes the cold cereals, a lot of them are really junky, but there's some really good ones out there too that aren't as junky. But you're looking for one that has like less than 10 grams of sugar. So, which sounds like a lot of sugar, but you'd be surprised at how many of them have more than 10 grams of sugar. So if you can find one that has at least 4 grams of fiber minimum, and then maximum 10 grams of sugar, that would be kind of a nice ratio to look for. Okay, that is it. So now I'm going to come back to you and I'm going to pick your brain. So hold on 2 seconds.